All right. Hey guys, thank you for waiting. Let's jump into our agenda for today. So we're going to start off like we normally do with our vocab lesson, and we're going to continue with the same format we've been recently doing, where I'm going to give you guys a random paragraph that uses both vocab words, and we'll try to figure out first what we think the definition of these words are. Now, make sure when you're writing your definitions to write it in a full sentence. So actually, formulate a full sentence, explain why you think that is the definition. So your answer should be like a couple sentences long. And then we'll look into the actual definition. We'll do our next topic, our novel analysis, and excuse me, and then our lesson plan. So first things first, our vocab. Let's have someone read this slide. Eric, can you read this slide for us, please?
Vocab practice. Read the following paragraph and write down what you think the highlighted vocab words mean. In the midst of the crisis, the leader chose not to address the issue directly, instead attempting to obfuscate the truth with carefully chosen words and half answers. While some were frustrated by the lack of clarity, others took a more pragmatic view, recognizing that immediate solutions mattered more than perfect transparency. The tension between these approaches revealed a deeper conflict between appearance and action, between what is said and what is actually done.
Right, very nicely done. So, like I mentioned, try to submit your answer using full sentence. So submit your answer um, in a full sentence with an explanation. So explain why you think whatever definition it is. So use like context clues, whatever it is, to help you out. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. All right, so I got two answers so far. I'm gonna give you guys another minute in case anyone's still wrapping up, and then I'll take these up in a minute. All right, let's check out these answers. Let's see. All right, Liam, can you read your answer for us, please?
I think obfuscate might mean try to hide or avoid. Pragmatic might mean a more logical and more of a view to just solve the problem.
Okay, solid. So, good job using a little bit of explanation to back up your answer. That's a great improvement from our last week's class. Uh, excuse me. So, I think obfuscate might mean to hide or avoid. Okay. Pragmatic might mean a more logical and more of a view to just solve the problem. Might mean a more logical. I guess we can just take out this phrasing here. View to also take out this word. Solve the problem. All right, fair enough. For next time, try to use like, actual evidence from the text to tell us why you chose this. Like you can say, oh, the text said this word. It made me think of this, blah, blah, blah. But good answer here so far. Eric, can you read your answer, please?
I think obfuscate means to blur or to hide something. This is because the context leading up to it mentions how a leader wants to hide slash not address an issue directly. I think pragmatic means more composed. This is because in the paragraph, people who took a pragmatic view seem more calm and composed, not letting the actions of the leader affect their emotions.
All right. Great job. So I really like that last part where you're basing your answer off of something in this story. I think obfuscate means to blur or to hide something. This is because the context leading up to it mentions how a leader wants to hide slash not address an issue directly. I think pragmatic means more composed. So let's add a little bit of wording here to be more composed. This is because in the paragraph, people who took a pragmatic view seemed more calm and composed, not letting the actions of the leader affect their emotions. Excellent answer here. So this is a very strong answer. Great job, Eric. And we've got one more answer. All right, Amy, go ahead.
Teacher, I think it changed it a bit. Like,
You changed it again? Okay, I grabbed the answer now. Okay, nice. It is changed.
um, ob obfuscate. To hide the truth from others. Leader used carefully chosen words and half answers, which shows the leader isn't giving much information, so obfuscate means to hide the truth from others. Pragmatic, a more practical way to deal with things. In the paragraph, some people recognize that immediate solutions mattered more than perfect transparency. Um,
All right. Yeah, is there more you want to add?
yes.
Go ahead.
Um, and and this shows um the view that they took is more like um is more practical and more realistic.
All right,
So
very good.
pragmatic.
Yeah, sorry, did I cut you off?
Nothing.
We're good? Okay. So, yeah, nicely done. So this is a really solid answer. Again, very good job to explain using parts of the story. So obfuscate, to hide the truth from others, the leader used carefully chosen words and half answers, which shows the leader isn't giving much information. So obfuscate means to hide a truth from others. Yeah, very good. Pragmatic, a more practical way to deal with things. In the paragraph, some people recognized that immediate solution mattered more than perfect transparency, and transparency is spelled a little bit different. Transparency. This shows the view that they took is more practical and realistic. All right, very well done to all you guys. I think we're pretty much um, spot on with our answers so far. I think obfuscate might be a little different from what you guys have said, but pragmatic, you guys did a great job so far. Let's look at the actual definitions here. Liam, can you read this page for us, please?
Obfuscate, verb, definition to deliberately make something unclear or difficult to understand. Example, rather than clarify his intentions, he chose to obfuscate, leaving everyone more confused than before. Pragmatic, adjective, definition, dealing with things realistically and practically rather than idealistically. For example, she took a pragmatic approach to the problem, focusing on what could actually be done instead of what should ideally happen.
Nice. Excellent job. So, um, yeah, like I said, you guys are really close with obfuscate. You're talking about things that are unclear, but it's more so in the realm of understanding something. So you guys are talking about like physically unclear, but this is like, it's hard to understand, it's difficult to understand, it's blurry, that kind of stuff. So rather than clarify his intentions, he chose to obfuscate, meaning to make something hard to understand, and everyone was confused. Pragmatic, adjective, you guys got the spot on. So when you deal with things in a more practical, realistic way, logical way. She took a pragmatic approach to the problem, focusing on what would actually be done instead of what should ideally happen. So, using these two words now, I want you guys to write your own paragraph about the following topic. Write a story or a reflection about a situation where clarity and practicality are in conflict. Include a character who must decide between ideal honesty and practical action. So we're comparing clarity against practicality. So practicality means something that is very realistic, logical, and the opposite, I guess, we would look at something that's the ideal situation. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. But try your best and make sure you're using both vocab words. Please submit in roughly 7 to 10 minutes. All right, so I got one answer submitted so far. I'm gonna give you guys another minute or two to wrap up your answers. And I do want you to submit whatever you have after, 1 or 2 minutes, and we'll take it up. So I'll give you guys like another minute or two to wrap up. All right, so let's look at our answers here. Okay, Liam, can you read your answer, please?
During World War II, the commander of a platoon of soldiers was shot and killed. Knowing this, the co-commander knew they still had to keep moving. Burdening the pain of their commander and friend's death, he wanted to hide the harsh truth from his fellow soldiers. So, instead, when their commander did not show up for the meeting, he decided to hide the truth. When others asked, he would obfuscate the truth. Many got annoyed, thinking he was hiding something, until one soldier stepped up. Taking a pragmatic approach, he told everyone, "We may not know about what has happened, but I believe our co-commander is doing the best for us. I do not think that he is hiding something from us for his own good, but for ours."
All right, excellent job here. Very detailed answer, which is great. And we use both words. So let's proofread this. During World War II, now this is the name of the war, so we're actually going to need to capitalize these words. Whoops. All right. And comma. Gonna need to make that red. All right. The commander of a platoon of soldiers was shot and killed. Knowing this, the co-commander knew they still had to keep moving. So we're gonna need another comma here. Burdening the pain of their comrade and friend's death, another comma. So Liam, make sure that whenever we're establishing a time frame or a transition phrase or whatever it is, anytime you have these type of phrases and you're reading it out loud, you'll notice that it is followed by a pause. So during World War II, pause, the commander, blah, blah, blah. Knowing this, pause, the co-commander, blah, blah, blah. Commander and their friend's death, pause, he wanted to hide. A lot of pauses so far in the beginning of our sentence. Make sure you can identify those pauses and put a comma at that area. Okay, let's continue. He wanted to hide the harsh truth from his fellow soldiers. So instead, when their commander did not show up for the meeting, another comma, he decided to hide the truth. When others asked, he would okay, yeah, another comma. Come on. We were missing a comma in every sentence at this point. He would obfuscate the truth. Many got annoyed thinking he was hiding something until one soldier, so we don't need a comma here, until one soldier stepped up, taking a pragmatic approach. We do need a comma here. Until one soldier stepped up, taking a pragmatic approach, he told everyone, "We may not know about what has happened, but I believe," so we don't need this comma, "but I believe our co-commander is doing the best for us. I do not think," and this is not going to be a comma, it's a period. it sounds more like two separate sentences instead of one long one. Excuse me. I do not think that he is hiding something from us for his own good, but for ours. And we're missing the end quotation. So a bunch of quotation, sorry, not quotation, bunch of punctuation issues here. Basically, every single sentence has a mistake. So Liam, you really need to do a good job of proofreading your work before submitting, because all of these punctuation mistakes you could have fixed. Um, yeah, everything else is perfectly fine. Just watch out for those punctuations. Amy, can you read your answer, please?
Mia's team missed a critical project deadline, and she faced a choice: tell her manager the full truth of her mistakes or to find a way to satisfy him. The temptation to obfuscate grew bigger every second. However, Mia still decided to be pragmatic. She told her manager exactly how things went wrong and her immediate plans to adjust their workflow to get back on track. Her manager was disappointed but agreed in her plans. In the end, choosing to be pragmatic would build trust and help the project and move the project forward.
All right. Excellent job. Excuse me. So Mia's team missed a critical project deadline and she faced the choice telling the manager her full truth of, sorry, telling the manager the full truth of her mistakes or to find a way to satisfy him. The temptation to obfuscate grew bigger every second. However, Mia still decided to be pragmatic. She told her manager exactly how things went wrong and her immediate plans. I don't think we need this comma. And her immediate plans to adjust their workflow to get back on track. Her manager was disappointed but agreed in her plans. We can probably say with her plans. More common wording in this situation. In the end, choosing to be pragmatic, rebuilt trust and moved the project forward. All right. Excellent job. I don't really have too much to change here. But pragmatic used correctly. Use it twice, so that's good. And where's obfuscate? Right here. Um, yeah, it makes sense. Sounds natural. Good job. So a couple of good answers so far. Let's move on to our next topic. We're going to be looking at a novel called Half of a Yellow Sun. Uh, let's check this out. Eric, can you read this slide for us, please?
Half of a Yellow Sun is set in Nigeria during the 1960s, a period marked by political instability and a lead up to the Biafran War. The novel follows multiple interconnected characters, including Ugwu, a village boy who becomes a house servant, Alana, an educated and privileged woman, and Richard, a British expatriate. Uh,
Yep.
through their perspectives, uh, uh, through their perspectives, the narrative explores the complexities of personal relationships, cultural identity, and social change within the nation on the brink of conflict. As the war unfolds, the characters' lives are profoundly disrupted, forcing them to confront loss, displacement, and shifting loyalties. The novel moves between past and present, gradually revealing how their experiences reshape their understanding of themselves and their country. Through its layered storytelling, the text examines how individuals navigate history as it is happening, and how the past continues to influence memory, identity, and moral responsibility.
All right. Excellent job here. So we know roughly, what the atmosphere here looks like, what the setting looks like, and a little bit of our character information. So we have Ugu, a village boy, becomes a house servant, Olana, educated, privileged woman, and Richard, a British expatriate or expatriate. Not too sure how to pronounce that, but it's basically somebody that left their native country to go to another country for work. Basically what it is. And basically in this novel here, we're going to be looking at their different perspectives on what they're experiencing as, you know, three different people of different backgrounds. What are their experiences like? What are their understanding of each other and their country and the complexity that they have to deal with the country and how the social aspects of the country affects them specifically. Um, yeah, we'll look at these different characteristics. We'll check this out. Let's look at a passage and we'll answer a couple questions based on this. Amy, can you read this passage for us, please?
The radio spoke of victory, but the faces around him told a different story. People moved more slowly now, as if weighed down by something they could not name. Uguru noticed how conversations ended abruptly, how laughter no longer came easily. It was not just fear, he realized, but something deeper, a quiet understanding that things had changed in ways that could not be undone.
All right. Excellent job. So a bit of a longer passage this time around. Let's answer a couple questions. First one, how does the passage use contrast between public narrative, which can be seen as the radio, and private experience, which is the faces around him, the people around him, to critique reliability of official truth? So a lot of words here. All we're looking at is the contrast or the difference between public narrative and private experience, and how does that relate to the reliability of truth? So try your best to pick out the important information here. And again, remember to worry too much about all the fluff words in this question. Just focus on these words really. I'll give you guys the summary in the chat. And if you have any questions for me, please let me know. All right. Nicely done. So we got two answers now. Let's put this on the screen. Oh, let's get rid of these. All right, nice. Eric, can you read your answer, please?
The author of the passage shown above uses contrast between public narrative and private experiences to critique the reliability of the truth. He accomplishes this by first stating the public narrative, the radio that spoke of victory. He then contrasts this perspective with the private experiences of people, mentioning how the faces around them told a different story. The author's standpoint critiques how, although the battle might have been won, the war is still raging on through the faces of the people, and now, underneath the official truth, there lies a darker story.
All right. Excellent job. So really well done to structure your answer very clearly. A nice natural flow to it. Excuse me. So the author of the passage shown above uses contrast between public narrative and private experience to critique the reliability of truth. He accomplishes this by first stating the public narrative, the radio that spoke of victory. Here we can use a semicolon. He then contrasts this perspective with the private experiences of people, mentioning how, and when we are, actually, no, this is not a quote. Sorry, it's not a dialogue. I was going to say if we're using dialogue, we need to put a comma. This is not dialogue. Mentioning how the faces around him told a different story. The author's standpoint critiques how, although the battle may have been won, the war is still raging on through the faces of the people, and how underneath the official truth there lies a darker story. All right. Yeah, I think we're on a pretty good we're on a good path here. I think if we start to address a little bit more about the perspectives of the different people, so you do have like a good topic sentence to address that there are different perspectives. But if we go a little deeper into that to explain what those two perspectives are, that'd be a very well done answer. I guess we don't really have too much info to work on, so this is a good, suitable answer instead. Very well done. Let's move on. Liam, can you read your answer, please?
The passage shows how public narrative is sometimes not very reliable. For example, it states the radio speaks of victory, but the faces around him told a different story. This shows how the public slash government says how they have won. But when he takes a look outside, it seems like the opposite. In addition, it states, Boo noticed that conversations ended abruptly, how laughter no longer came easily. This shows how the government and the public may have won the war, but its citizens burdened the cost. So some may have won the war, didn't. Public narrative is, I think the R is like unnecessary. So when you have the same status and background as the people speaking, and it's a period.
And it's a period, sure. So I'll make that change and let's take this out. Excuse me. So very well done. I like the quotes that you used here. It's a great um, addition, and you spoke specifically about one character, so that's nice. So the passage shows how public narrative is sometimes not very reliable. For example, it states the radio speaks of victory, the faces around him told a different story. This shows how the public slash government says how they have won, but when he takes a look outside, we're going to need a comma here. It seems like the opposite. In addition, it states noticed how conversations ended abruptly, how laughter no longer came easily. This shows how the government and the public may have won the war, but its citizens burdened its costs. Nice. This is a great way to phrase it. Very succinct, very straight to the point, but it's a meaningful, emotional way to explain it. Excuse me. So some may have won, but others didn't. Public narrative is only reliable when you have the same status and background as the people speaking. Again, very solid, very meaningful sentence right here as well. So it's a very strong and thoughtful answer that you provided. Um, Honestly, I don't really have too much I can change up or proofread here. Only one comma missing, so you did a really much more improved answer with this one. Yeah, great stuff, Leo. And I got one more answer. All right, Amy, can you read your answer, please?
The passage uses the contrast between public narrative and private experience to critique the reliability of official truth. The radio represents the official public narrative, broadcasting false promises of victory to the public. However, the faces around Liu Gu tell a different story. The faces show that the victory had huge costs, perhaps family or friends. The character's private experience shows the dehumanizing official story, exposing how they erase the trauma of ordinary people to maintain a truth that has been obfuscated. Overall, the passage critiques the reliability of official truth, showing how the official truth is like a blanket hiding a deep well of darkness.
All right. Again, a really well formatted answer, and that last sentence really ties everything in nicely. It's a great closing sentence. So the passage uses the contrast between public narrative and private experience to critique the reliability of official truth. The radio represents the official public narrative, broadcasting false promises of victory to the public. However, the faces around Ugu tell a different story. The faces show that the victory had huge costs, perhaps family, or friends. Do we need a hyphen here? Perhaps family or friends. Hmm. Yeah, I guess so. But usually I'd see a hyphen like this. It's going to be a longer hyphen. If you're typing it out, it's going to be two hyphens, and you need to put spaces around it. Excuse me. The character's private experience. Since you're doing multiple characters, you put the S before the apostrophe. That means we're going to need multiple experiences. Oops, wrong color. The character's private experiences show the dehumanizing official story, exposing how they erase the trauma of ordinary people to maintain a truth that has been obfuscated. Nice. Good use of our vocab word. It makes sense here. Something that's hard to understand. Overall, the passage critiques the reliability of official truth, showing how the official truth is like a blanket hiding a deep well of darkness. Excellent. Um, so we do mention the false promises. We do mention Ugu, our character. I think, yeah, I think had we, okay, so we're talking about, so we're just kind of touching on a lot of the top level points. If we go a little bit deeper into these, provide more specific details, if we could find it at least in the information provided, then that would take this answer to a stronger level. If that information is not provided, because we are kind of limited with what we can work with, that's totally fine. It's understandable. But this is a great answer. All three answers, actually. All you guys submitted very strong answers. Nicely done. Let's keep it going. I don't know if we have enough time for the second question. Let's move on to our lesson plan. If you guys remember, we're doing the theme of justice versus revenge, and we broke down each of these words. Real quick, let's just have a little refresh. Let's read these slides. Liam, can you read this slide for us, please?
Justice is not simply punishment. It is rooted into principles beyond the individual. Aims to restore balance, uphold fairness, and maintain social or moral order. Impartiality. Decisions are not driven by personal emotion. Proportionality. Punishment fits the wrongdoing. Accountability. Wrongdoing is acknowledged and addressed. System or code. Law, morality, or shared ethical standards. Restoration. Focus on repairing harm or balance.
All right, excellent job. So with the topic of justice, we kind of have the same overall message here. We're trying to restore balance. So anything that deals with maintaining fairness, social order, laws, all that kind of stuff, just behaving in a way that is very balanced and fair, that's justice. So that can be in terms of making sure that everything is very proportional. Somebody's not getting a way worse punishment than someone else. Um, there's a system in place, there's a code, there's a law in place. People are accountable, so if you do something wrong, you do deserve some kind of consequence. And you'll notice nothing here is really emotional. So it's a very logical approach to things. It's not like you're emotionally reacting to things. Now, let's look at revenge. Eric, can you read this slide, please?
Revenge is driven by personal emotion, particularly anger, pain, or betrayal. It seeks not balance, but satisfaction or retaliation. Personal motivation, rooted in individual experience. Emotional intensity, anger, grief, humiliation. Disproportion, punishment may exceed wrongdoing. Escalation, create cycles of harm. Immediate action, urgency, lack of reflection.
Excellent. So in this passage here, or not passage, in this slide, when we're dealing with revenge, everything seems very emotional. Everything is fueled by strong emotions, negative emotions usually, anger, pain, betrayal. Those are all very strongly attached to how somebody behaves. Their motivations might be personal, might be intense, um, might be urgent. They're looking to cause harm. They're looking to hurt somebody. All these kind of things tie with revenge. They have nothing to do with being balanced, nothing to do with being logical or trying to establish fairness. It's all about trying to one up somebody. So, last week we were looking at this passage from the Count of Monte Cristo, and we answered a couple questions, but there's still two more that we haven't gotten around to. So, I want to continue where we left off. Let's continue with this passage here. Amy, can you read this passage for us, please?
I have been taken from prison and loaded with riches. I have been taught the secrets of men and of the world. Now I will return, not as I was, but as something else entirely. Those who betrayed me believed themselves safe, protected by time and distance. But time has not erased what has done. It has sharpened it. I do not act in anger, but in certainty. What I do now is not for myself alone. It is to restore balance where there has been none.
All right, very well done. And like I said, we're continuing off, so we're not doing one and two, we're going to do number three. Does the claim of restoring balance make the actions just? Why or why not? So the question's on the screen here, passage is right above, and try to answer your question in roughly 3 sentences. If you have any questions for me, please let me know. I'll bump it up actually. Let's do like, if you want, if you can get 5 sentences, go for it, but at least 3 sentences here. All right, so I got one answer submitted so far. I'm gonna take this up, and if any more answers come in, uh, please submit them ASAP. All right, Amy, can you read your answer, please?
The claim of restoring balance does not make the actions just. His motives are rooted in personal vengeance, not in restoring a balance to the world. Even though he frames his acts as acts of justice, but the truth cannot be changed. He had a long time in prison to ponder his defeat, to fester his anger, not a desire for fairness. Overall, the claim is the claim and truth is the truth. His actions remain revenge hidden beneath a mask of balance.
All right. Well said. Um, let's check this out. So the claim of restoring balance does not make the actions just. This is a strong topic sentence. You picked your stance. Everything has to be relevant to this stance. His motives are rooted in personal vengeance, not in restoring a balance to the world. Even though he frames his actions as acts of justice, even though he frames his acts as acts of justice, but the truth cannot be changed. I think the word but here kind of throws off the flow of the sentence. Even though he frames his acts as acts of justice, the truth cannot be changed. I think that sounds better. He had a long time in prison to ponder his defeat, to fester his anger, not desire. Should just be yeah, not a desire for fairness. So this whole section right here is, very capable of being its own sentence. We don't need a hyphen here. So I'm just gonna take that out and make this capital. Overall, the claim is the claim and the truth is the truth. His actions remain revenge, hidden behind a mask of balance. All right, I think this can be phrased a little bit differently. His actions remain revenge. So this part is fine. This part, not as strong. It's I get what we're saying. Like, these are two different things. The claim is one thing, truth is the other thing. I think we can phrase this in a much more stronger and impactful way. But the rest of this is pretty good. And yeah, for the most part, solid answer. We do talk about how his motives are very personal, about revenge. I think if we can break this down a little bit deeper, that would be good. This is a pretty important detail to add, so we should be able to back it up a little bit deeper. Let's see, our next answer. Liam, can you read your answer, please?
From my point of view, the claim of restoring balance does and does not make actions just. It depends on your actual goal behind your claim of restoring balance. I believe that if it is a genuine thought of restoring balance, then it could be just. However, if it isn't a genuine thought of restoring balance, then it does not make the action just. For example, in passage it states, "What I do is not for myself alone, it is to..." Oh, sorry. "What I do is not for myself alone, it is to restore a balance where there has been none." This clearly shows he is trying to frame his vengeance as a restoration of balance. This shows how the claim of restore of balance is unjust. So the claim of restoration of balance could be just or unjust. It depends on if it came from heart.
All right. Nicely done. So from my point of view, the claim of restoring balance does and does not make actions just. So usually with our topic sentences here, let's try to stick to one side. Let's not bounce from one side and the other side. Let's just pick one, take a firm stance, and back it up. If you're picking both sides, it does make your answer seem a little like not as impactful. Um, you're also going to sacrifice the amount of detail that you add to each side. So for next time, try to just pick one side. So it depends on your actual goal behind your claim of restoring balance. We don't need this comma here. I believe that if it is a genuine thought of restoring balance, then it could be just. However, if it isn't a genuine thought of restoring balance, need a comma here, then it does not make the action just. For example, in the passage it states, "What I do is not for myself alone, it is to restore balance where there has been none." This clearly shows that he's trying to frame his vengeance as restoration of balance. This shows, huh? Um, so he's talked about how this quote is relevant to his vengeance. So for anybody that's reading this for the first time, they probably don't see this as anything related to vengeance. But I think you should try to phrase this or try to add some more detail, some more context, explain how this is even talking about vengeance at all. The restoration part is pretty self-explanatory because it says so in the text, but the vengeance part, not so clear here. So I think if you explain it a little bit, it'd be a stronger answer. Excuse me. This clearly shows that he is trying to frame his vengeance as restoration of balance. This shows how the claim of restoration of balance is unjust. Um, yeah, I think these two can be put into one sentence. We're kind of saying a lot of the same words. You can combine them together. So the claim of restoration of balance could be just or unjust. It depends on if it came from the heart. All right. Um, yeah, so a few points I can make here. First thing, try to pick one stance. Second thing, make it clear on what we're explaining here. So we're talking about the purity of somebody's motives. I think that can be your topic sentence. How pure are someone's intentions and someone's motives? That determines if their actions are just. Um, and your sentence structure, the way you are writing your sentences, even though you're making some valid points, you're saying a lot of things in a very wordy way. You can cut down on the words a whole lot in this answer here. You can combine sentences. You can use pronouns instead of saying the same phrase over and over again. So yeah, a few just writing techniques for the most part, but solid answer nonetheless. I am gonna stick around a little bit longer, another 10 minutes for class because I did start class a little bit late. So let's work on the final question here. Actually, that question doesn't really need much time. Let's do another passage entirely. Let's look at this one. Amy, can you read this passage for us, please?
You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. There is something in our world that makes men lose their heads. They couldn't be fair if they tried. In the name of justice, they forget what justice truly is.
All right. Excellent job. And this quote came from To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, let's work on the first question here. And as I mentioned, we will have 9 minutes now until the end of class. So try to submit your answer in roughly like 5 minutes so that we have a few minutes to take it up. Um, this answer can be like, I don't know, 2 to 3 sentences. A bit shorter is fine. But I'll give you around 5 minutes to complete this. If you have any questions, please let me know. All right. We got one answer submitted. Let's check this out. Okay, Liam, can you read your answer, please?
This passage defines true justice as something impossible. It says that true justice could not be achieved because to achieve true justice, you need to experience the exact same thing as everyone else, which is not possible. For example, it states you'll never really understand a person until you think from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around with it. That shows how true justice is unachievable. We get close to it, but never there. We can never experience things the same as each other unless we climb into each other's skins.
All right. Very well said. So it's a interesting take to go with here. So the passage defines true justice as something that is impossible. It says that true justice could not be achieved because to achieve true justice, um, so this is kind of what I mean last time when I said that you can replace things with a pronoun. So you say true justice and you say true justice again. You can just replace this one with the word it. So it says that true justice could not be achieved because to achieve it, comma, and let's make this red. You need to experience the exact same thing as everyone else, which is not possible. Um, hmm. Okay, yeah, I think we can just like make this one sentence. Put a comma and lowercase, which is not possible. For example, it states you will never really understand a person until you think from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. I'm not sure why the quotation mark is like this. This shows how true justice is unachievable. We could get close to it, but never there. And we're going to need a semicolon here instead. We will never experience things the same as each other unless we climb into each other's skin. Nice. Okay, so this sentence right here is really well said. And the part about how, this quote that you brought up, how you can't really be in someone's perspective until you actually climb into their skin. Obviously, you can't do that, but it's a very relevant quote to put. Makes a lot of sense here. So your answer is very strong. Great answer. Let's keep moving. We got one more answer. Let's make this text a little smaller. All right. Amy, can you read your answer, please?
This passage defines true justice. It says, you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. It shows that if you want to give true justice, you need to stand from others' point of view. You shouldn't let emotion and racial discrimination cloud your mind. For example, if you are a white person, you shouldn't falsely accuse a black person of doing a crime that has nothing to do with him. Overall, real justice only comes when we drop emotional judgment and keep to the true facts.
Oh, we added a little bit more. And keep to the true facts. All right. So this passage defines true justice. It says, you'll never understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. It shows that if you want to give true justice, you need to stand from another's point of view. You shouldn't let emotion and racial discrimination cloud your mind. I don't need the S here. For example, if you are a white person, you shouldn't falsely accuse a black person of doing a crime that has nothing to do with them. Overall, real justice only comes when we drop emotional and keep to the facts. We can either say emotional something, like emotional
Judgment.
is an adjective.
I said emotional judgment.
Oh, judgment. Okay, cool. So I'll put that there and keep to the true facts. Okay. Yeah, great answer here. Um, defines true justice. Yeah, the only point I would make is your topic sentence could be a little bit more clear. Um, like, maybe add more of a stronger stance here. So it defines true justice as blah, blah, blah. Maybe say what you think the definition of true justice means based on this passage. Everything else, though, solid. Here's the good quote. You explained it, you broke it down, you even provided your own example. So it's good stuff all around. That topic sentence is probably the only thing that needs work. But yeah, so that's it for today's class. Great stuff, you guys. Great answers. I'll see you all next week. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.